name is Mary Beth Morris. With me is Andrew Conlog. We're two team members here at Duquesne University and the Center for Global Engagement. We're delighted that you could join us. We're so happy to talk about options that F1 international students have when they're here in the US. And I think this one particular optional practical training is a great way to understand the benefits that kind of come with the F1 student visa, but also are just something that's a possibility that may help extend your time here, but really give you real world work experience. So let's talk a little bit about it all. So we refer to OPT, optional practical training, as an option for students upon graduation. So this is always after graduation. Basically, OPT is defined as temporary employment for practical training directly related to the student's major area of study. So it's an option after graduation to say, okay, I've learned this in the classroom. Now I can get some real world work experience, put that on my resume, and that just kind of helps elevate you in terms of your marketability even more so. So the optional practical training has just a few caveats, requirements. A student must have been lawfully enrolled on a full-time basis for at least one full academic year to be eligible. Now, that makes sense because most programs would be a minimum of one academic year. Most programs are longer than that. There are some intensive master's programs that run in about 3 semesters. Most masters are about 2 to 3 years. Undergrad are usually 4 years, and then some of the doctoral programs can be anywhere from 5 to 7 years. So a student must have at least completed one full year, graduated from their program to be eligible. The optional training also is something that's done exactly in your field of study. So it's important that this is directly related to what you have just studied in your program. And it also needs to be appropriate for the level of education. Now, one thing I will say, there's some flexibility with this, which is good. There is the option to, sometimes you just have to start off as kind of an entry level, but hopefully work your way up. So we recognize that in some fields, in some industries, you might have to start at an entry level. But again, it starts to give you work experience. That's ultimately what OPT is all about. So standard OPT is basically the first year of OPT for students after graduation. And it is available for the cumulative maximum of 12 months, but it's also 12 months at each educational level. So that means if you finish a bachelor's degree, you can get 1 year of OPT. Do a master's, you can get 1 year of OPT. And if you do a doctorate, you can get another year of OPT. So we call that first year standard OPT. There is an extension, which we'll talk about in a moment. And anytime a student's looking at doing optional practical training connected to their visa, the Center for Global Engagement, our office is involved. We have to actually authorize the optional practical training as the first step in applying. And we'll talk about the process and a lot more here in a moment. The work always begins after graduation. And a requirement of the standard optional practical training is that the student would work at full time, which is at least 20 hours or more per week. Some students might find a full-time job that's 40 hours or 50 hours. There's actually no maximum cap on the number of hours you can work. Obviously, it has to be realistic, but you could also do more than one job that's part-time. So if you did one job for 20 hours, another job for 20 hours, that works as well. So you really want to maximize your time with your 1 year of OPT. So ideally a full-time job. Obviously, we want you to get paid for it, get paid a great salary, get paid, with the benefits. So all those things, would come with OPT. After the first year, the standard year of OPT is an optional additional 2 years called the STEM OPT. This is considered a 24-month extension, so 2 additional years that is available to certain STEM degree recipients. Now, to qualify for STEM, your major, the code listed on your I-20 document, has to correspond to a specific table that CVIS, that USCIS, and our Homeland Security has determined is a STEM field. And of course, STEM standing for science, technology, engineering, and math. Not all programs that seem like they're connected to science are considered STEM. It's also a field that has research attached to it. So someone who comes in as maybe a freshman in college, wanting to be a nurse or a physical therapist or a pharmacist, those are actually not STEM fields because they train you to go into a specific field and work, as opposed to if you came in and got a master's degree in, let's say, pharmacology or pharmaceutics, that is a STEM field because that is much more research-based. So just to kind of clarify, the STEM extension is specific to the major that's listed on your I-20, the major that we have connected with our majors here at Duquesne. So we get the question all the time, is my major a STEM field? You could Google it and find the list of the STEM majors. We can also answer that question. But it's a good thing to know in advance if you have 1 year of OPT or if you have the full 3 years. And it is possible to do the STEM extension more than one time. For a while, it was limited to one STEM experience, but it is possible to now do it more than once. During the STEM OPT years, those 24 months, you also need to work full time. So 20 to 40 hours per week on average. You could work one full-time job or multiple part-time jobs. You must always submit all the employers to our office to put into the CVIS system. And this has an online application process for all OPT, the regular one, and for the STEM one as well. So during OPT or STEM, students must always report any name, address, or job changes to the PDSO, which is the principal designated school official, which is myself, or any of the other designated school officials here at Duquesne. That's one thing that's really, really important with an F1 student visa. The U.S. Customs and Immigration Services, so USCIS, is very tight with their recommendations and then their requirements for reporting during work. A work violation is actually one of the worst violations that you can have on an F1 visa. So this is really critical. We kind of emphasize it a lot that we must always have your employer listed in CVIS. So if we look at the process for OPT, you will begin working with our office about 100 days or so before graduation. We say 100 days because you would actually submit your application and materials online to USCIS at 90 days or less before you graduate. So for example, our graduation date this year is on May 9th. So starting around February 10th, 3 months before, 90 days, I started working with students to help them submit their application. You actually receive a card, a work authorization card with your photo on it. And at that point, once you've been approved for OPT, you can now start working. So you do have to wait for the approval and wait for that card to come in the mail. So the process at a glance, it's actually quite straightforward. It's not that complicated. Again, it involves our office, Duke Global, that the student comes to us to say, I want to do OPT. I go into CVIS, I update your CVIS record, I update the I-20 to recommend the student for OPT. At that point, we decide on what your preferred start date would be. It's, let's say we, have graduation this year on May 9th. That's a Friday. People might say May 10th. I want the next day, or I'm going to have family visiting for graduation. Let's wait till June 1st. You have about 60 days within which you must have chosen a start date upon, the end of your program graduation. So once we have that in CVIS, I get a new I-20, and I assist you to actually file a form called the I-765. Now, we go through all the details, nothing you need to worry about right now, but it's an application for work authorization, and you file this form with the U.S. government. You submit several other documents. You go in through an online portal. You create your own account. We assist you with uploading your documents. You upload a photo, I think a copy of your passport, a copy of, other important documents. And then you pay a fee to apply for that benefit, and you basically will wait. While it processes, you're still finishing up your program, working towards graduation. Once they've reviewed everything, USCIS will adjudicate it. They will make their decision. The majority of our students, probably 99.5%, get approved for the OPT. It's a benefit that all students have with their F1 visa. So there isn't a limit on the number of people who can do OPT. You don't have to be the first to apply because the spots will run out. That's not the way it works. If you have an F1 visa, you are permitted to apply and have the benefit of being approved. So USCIS will make their decision and adjudicate that form. At that point, you wait for that card to come in the mail. You got the card, let me know, maybe send me an email with a picture of the front and back of the card, and you can start working. So if you have a job, make sure that I know about it. We enter the employment data into SEVIS. If you move, you also let me know if you have a new living address. I also update that in SEVIS. So at any point during that year of OPT, any address changes or job changes also come to our office so that we can update SEVIS. And as I said, really work is such an amazing benefit of your F1 visa, but any violations are also very serious. So we really kind of overemphasize these points to just help you remember, okay, updates always need to be reported. So now you're on OPT. You can work according to the dates on your EAD, your Employment Authorization Document card. Or if you actually don't have a job yet, start keeping track of the days that you are not employed, your unemployment days. Students are permitted to have about 3 months, 90 days of unemployment days. It's time for you to look for a job. So certainly start looking as soon as you can, even a year before graduation. We do a lot of job fairs on campus. We have a lot of networking. So Duquesne has a dedicated department on campus called Career Services, and they're very eager to help connect you to interviews and potential employers to help you hopefully land that job. So now you've got the job, you're going to work full time for that 12 months that you were approved for the OPT, always logging your work activity, your employers, any changes, and of course, always logging any updates with your address as well. When you get to the end, if you're eligible, you can apply for the STEM OPT extension. You can do that once again within 90 days of that first year of OPT ending. You must always submit your STEM application before regular OPT ends. There's no time afterward because it needs to be right up to itself on the day, so there's no gap to continue the employment. So if you're not applying for STEM, you're just going to work until the end date on the EAD card. And at that point, you can leave the US to go back home. You could transfer to another institution, or you could stay at Duquesne and start a new program. So for those who aren't doing STEM, those are the options you have at the end of that first year of OPT. So that is a quick overview of the whole process. It's something, as I said, that is really valuable. I'll just give you some anecdotal information on the students we've worked with over the past couple of years. Basically, since the COVID pandemic, we've seen a real rise in the number of students being able to get these jobs for OPT. One option, which we don't really talk about today, is there are some possibilities to do internships while you're a student. And those internships are a great experience. They often help students connect to employers that will offer them that job after graduation. Mm-hmm. And we've seen a lot of success with that. We've seen students be able to maybe get that internship in a summer, get the job after graduation. We've seen employers here in Pittsburgh. We've seen employers across the country. The F1 work benefit for OPT does not limit you to have to stay here in Pittsburgh. A lot of students want to. They like Pittsburgh. They're settled here. They have friends here. We see some of the local hospitals do some of the hiring for students who are in nursing or biomedical engineering. We see students who are in pharmacology and pharmaceutics get placed into other universities as research assistants upon graduation. We see students in finance and accounting get great jobs. BNY Mellon, Bank New York Mellon, based out of New York City, has a branch here. We have several students who were hired. Student in accounting was recently hired by Deloitte. Just a lot of great companies, EY, Ernst Young for accounting as well. So we're really seeing some great placements from our students. And sometimes now we're seeing that turn into what comes next, which might be a sponsorship for a work visa. So we've seen a lot of success with our students in that as well. Just, after working maybe 6 years or 6 months up to a year, and their employer being really happy with them, saying, we want to keep you, we're going to help sponsor you for the next step in your career, and apply for a work visa, an H-1B visa. So the opportunities are out there. We're seeing, like I said, a lot of success since COVID, a lot of students getting placed. And I think really as soon as you start a program, especially if you're in a graduate program and it's shorter, just a couple years, you want to start looking for those opportunities, start working with career services. We have mock interviews that you can do. We have resume assistance. As I said, we do a big career fair twice a year. And then we have networks of just our own alumni and local businesses. So there are really a lot of opportunities out there. And we kind of help empower the students to take it on and kind of make that next step